Hello and greetings everyone from an emergency creative outlet bonus. Okay, it's really not an emergency creative outlet bonus because I guess I did kind of sort of say I would do this one because today is April 16th, 2023, and I have returned from seeing a certain film, a certain movie, the Super Mario Brothers movie. And I'm going to get this out of the way. Also, so I can make this promise to myself, and I have to hear this when I listen to this again. Tomorrow, April 17th, I am recording the first half because I've decided to split it into two parts because it's been too darn long since I released something. I will be recording that first two waves tier list of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. Mark my words to myself, I will do it. That out of the way, getting to the main focus of this, yes, I did indeed today go see the Super Mario Brothers movie, and I promised in this creative outlet bonus I would be doing a first impression, just kind of giving my thoughts on having seen the film. This isn't really a real review. I'm not going to give it a score. Granted, I probably wouldn't give it a score in my real review either, because I think scores are kind of weird and very nebulous and tough to really make objective. But these are just the things that I wanted to talk about having seen the movie today for the first time. I'm going to try to make this pretty much spoiler free. A lot of the things I noted down didn't really have spoilers, except for maybe the very last piece in this. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So the long and short of it, if you really wanted my thoughts summarized into a single sentence, is that they didn't screw it up. That was my biggest fear going into this, thinking back to my preview in the 23rd episode of this podcast where I dedicated the entire thing about it, is I was just thinking, don't screw it up. Don't screw it up. This is the chance. This is like, the 93 movie that was bad. This is going to be the real... there's a reason it's called the Super Mario Brothers movie, because this is the Super Mario Brothers movie. And to the extent I would say that they really didn't screw it up, I'm gonna say something. This is something that's never, ever been heard come out of my mouth until today. I would see it again in the theaters. That's how much I enjoyed it. Now, granted, part of it is, obvious bias. I wore my Super Mario World shirt to the movie. Like, obviously, this is, major nostalgia at play here. I probably would not say something like this for pretty much any other movie, or it would have to be a very extreme sort of example, kind of similar to this for me to say something like that. But I would go see it again. And granted, part of it, too, is because I really want to have more viewings to really evaluate how I truly feel about it. In fact, I would even spend the extra money to see it in 3D in honor of the 3DS, because I also feel like in some ways it definitely had some moments where I was like, okay, that was meant to be a 3D moment. That was meant to be a 3D moment. And I think it'll be interesting. I should also say I've never seen a 3D movie, so for the fact that technology has been around for like 10, 15 years and I've never done it. So I think that'll be fun, just to say I've done it once. I should also note there were some interesting lore type notes I had on this movie, but those aren't really what I want to discuss here. I want to have this be more of a first impressions review type experience. I could talk about how, like, whoa, it was really interesting, like the karts, the sport of Mario Kart's really like a Kong creation. Whoa, but that's neat. But that's not really the focus of this here. If I talk about that, like, honestly, if I really want to get into all that extra stuff, I could probably dedicate a whole creative outlet podcast to that later. But that isn't the focus right now. That's not what this bonus piece is for. So I'm going to kind of go down my list of notes here. Hopefully this won't be too long. I see I'm already about 5 minutes in. But we'll just see what happens. This is a bonus after all. So I want to say the opening of the movie, great first impression. Why? They opened on the same thing they opened in on that first trailer that I thought was really good. We focused on Bowser and him taking over the Ice Penguin Kingdom, right? I thought that was a very good scene. Then what do they open from there? Okay, we've seen Bowser, we've seen the Mushroom Kingdom. Where do we open on when it comes to the Mario Brothers? It's pretty much the commercial, like from the commercial, except they've edited it such that it actually makes sense in the movie. And of course, again, obvious bias is obvious. They're these Super Mario Brothers in the commercial, and they even have a little bit where they're like clearly they're trying to pretend like they're flying like they're superheroes, and they have the yellow capes on from Super Mario World. So I love that. But I mean, the commercial itself, of course, I gushed about the commercial in episode 23, the Super Bowl commercial, and how I thought that was genius. So I'm glad that they actually decided to make that a part of the film. I thought that was very nice. There are references galore in this movie. I don't think the references were overkill, though. It wasn't like I did not find myself for very many moments going in and being like, okay, they made that reference and they made that reference and, there's that happening in it. But, it was definitely nice to be able to pick out like, okay, I'm probably the only person in the theater, or maybe one of like 2 people in the theater as I'm watching it today, that recognizes that, oh, Mario's playing Kid Icarus when we're in the scene that, he's in his room and he's playing the NES and he's playing Kid Icarus. Not that I don't think people don't know about Kid Icarus, but it's definitely not the most popular first-party NES game. Things like the antiques shop in the Mushroom Kingdom didn't actually, like, the scene we saw of it in that little, it wasn't a trailer, but just, like, talking, like, where they just had the scene as, like, a sample that I talked about in the last episode. That was pretty much the extent of it. It was just there, it happened, it was done and over with. Charles Martinet. Okay, Charles Martinet, remember, in the marketing it was said he was supposed to have cameos in this movie. He only had 2 characters in it. So the way we open up the movie, the way we get after, we see the commercial, we see the Mario Brothers in Brooklyn, just kind of doing their thing. They're at this pizzeria, the Punch-Out Pizzeria. So there's another reference. It's not like super duper in your face, but if you catch it, and it's good. And they're watching their commercial on TV, and they get commentary from this guy who's over playing the Jumpman arcade game. That's clever because it's supposed to be Donkey Kong, but Donkey Kong can't exist in this universe, because if Donkey Kong existed, then that would mean Mario's a game character. Mario's a real person in this world. So the events of Donkey Kong never technically happened, right? Because it would have to have been a game, which also I guess means Super Mario Brothers never existed as an NES game. So I really want to know what the analog to Super Mario Brothers was in this universe then. But again, that's a lore tangent we can talk about later, because obviously Mario had the NES. I'm sure the NES enjoyed the same popularity in the universe where they were real people. So what was their Super Mario Brothers game in that world? I'm very curious. But again, side tangent for a later date and time for me to go on. Anyway, they end up getting commentary from this guy who's playing the Jumpman game, and what is his voice? It is Mario's voice. Not Chris Pratt's voice, it's Mario's voice, because it's Charles Martinet. I'm glad they kind of got that out of the way. It would have been interesting to sort of have Mario's voice pop out throughout the course of the movie, just have different characters in it, just have Mario's voice and have it be a Charles Martinet cameo, but, that was fine. I'm glad it was in there. It kind of was obligated to be in there, but there was only one other character that he voiced, and it is, shock and surprise, Mario's dad. His dad definitely has a more Wario-type voice than a Mario-type voice. And we really didn't get to hear much from Mario's dad. There was something that ended up being focused on closer, like way closer toward release, or at least the way that Chris Pratt and Charlie Day focused on, which is sort of the family dynamic of the characters. I don't think that played a ton into it, though I do have a critique kind of extending off of this being a piece, but definitely the first, 10, 15 minutes where we're in Brooklyn, there is some family theme going on there, and getting to see, who would be the Mario Brothers mom and dad, and who would their uncles and aunts, and, who would their grandfather, how would he look like, and seeing that come to fruition. And speaking of that, one of the themes in the movie, I would not really generally call the Super Mario Brothers movie a deep thematic movie. Wow, shocker. It's not a super artistic film, I know. That doesn't mean it's bad. Not every movie has to be like that, but to the extent they had some themes, it was like, oh, the disappointment from your father and the wanting to build on your family legacy and not be disappointing as a person. It's not a bad theme, but it's kind of a cliche theme. How many movies can we have where it's like the main internal conflict of the character is like, I'm not necessarily being the big success I thought I was going to be, and I'm like, my dad is disappointed in me. Like, I get it, it's a kid's film, it's a theme the kids can relate to, but there's so many movies that are about that. That was definitely one of the few Illumination-y type things that I thought existed in this. Is it's like, okay, we're trying to do something that's a little more serious, but we pick something that's cliche because it's easy and everybody who's watching it will, there's going to be somebody in the audience who relates to it. Again, fine. I think they could have done something more interesting. Maybe this is just me, but, I want to, like, in the real world, their business was called Super Mario Brothers Plumbing, right? I think that could have been an interesting theme to go on. Maybe I'm just thinking about Freedom Planet and how, to me, that game, if you really analyze the story, is like really a story about heroism and who can be a hero. I think there could have been a similar thing going on here. Why does Mario think his business should be Super Mario Brothers Plumbing? What makes him, decide that he needs to help the princess aside from just wanting to save Luigi? He becomes invested, it seems like, in actually helping save the Mushroom Kingdom. So why is he interested in that? Maybe this is going to be a slight spoiler, but we do see a moment in Mario and Luigi's childhood, and Mario, of course, stands up for Luigi when they're kids, right? Again, that's a kind of a cliche thing, so I hope that isn't really that big of a spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen the movie. But why does Mario feel the need to do that beyond just, I'm a good brother and I care for my little brother and I want to make sure he feels good? Because anybody probably would do that, but clearly there's something about heroes and heroism that appeals to Mario as a character, so I think it's kind of disappointing that we didn't get to explore that theme at all. And I've brought up Luigi, and so I think it's kind of apt to bring this up now. So we saw this in the marketing where Luigi ends up trapped and he's in this cage suspended over a pool of lava, and it seems like after that Luigi gets pretty much forgotten about. And to me, that's a major problem when your movie is titled the Super Mario Brothers movie. I'm not saying that the movie actually had to be about the Super Mario Brothers in the sense that it had to be Mario and Luigi going together. Of course, again, I talked about in the last episode, I think it would be a completely fair critique to say it would be very sort of primitive and retrograde in the year 2023 to have a film that's just a damsel in distress story. But I don't think that should have been to the detriment of just sort of getting rid of time we could have with Luigi. Because we still did get, after that, we did get time with Bowser, right? And I wanted time with Bowser. I think we got a good amount of time with Bowser, and Bowser ended up being an interesting character throughout the movie. But I wanted that same kind of time given to Luigi. And if the writers thought that they couldn't do like an A plot with Mario and Peach and a B plot with Bowser and then do a C plot with Luigi, then what they needed to do is they needed to have the B plot be Bowser and Luigi. Even if that meant cutting out other characters, like if it meant cutting out the penguins and the Penguin King a little bit and cutting out the Luma character, I think that would have been fine. Because again, this is the Super Mario Brothers movie. I need to hear what Luigi is thinking about. I want to know what he's doing. I want to, hear what he's thinking about. And instead, he just kind of ends up in the cage and he's stuck there for the whole rest of the movie, until eventually he gets out. Spoilers. Spoilers. Luigi gets out. Who would have guessed that eventually happens? but instead he just kind of got tossed to the wayside. And so I know there have been pieces in some promotional material where Charlie Day's been like, hey guys, I'd be interested in doing a Luigi's Mansion movie, and I'm just saying, I feel like it was kind of a sin that they did not give Luigi as much time as he really needed. So that could be a really good way to make up for that if somebody's down for writing a Luigi's Mansion movie. In fact, I've been thinking about it ever since I read those comments from him. I was like, yeah, I think I can think of some good ways to do this. I'm just saying, Nintendo Illumination, whoever's out there listening to this, hit me up, send in a message to this, oh my goodness, I don't know the link anymore because it's not the, short anchor.fm/THECOP anymore, but I digress. But send me a message here on my podcast and I'll get back to you with some of my ideas. In fact, I think I got some themes. Come back to that idea. I got some themes that'll be interesting for that movie. Wink, wink. I know it's not really going to happen, but a man can dream. And actually, now that I brought it up, the Luma character, that Luma, he or she or whatever it is, added nothing to this movie. I was severely let down by that character because what you saw in the trailer is pretty much what you got out of it. It was just kind of there and interested in the sweet release of death for no apparent reason, and that was their entire character. And I thought that was a severely, it wasn't really a big detriment, but it was just super lost potential. If we're not going to do anything with the Luma, don't even bother including it. And to the extent there really is anything that comes as a detriment to including it, then it's having that lost time that we could have had with Luigi. I would have rather just kept that out, put Luigi with Bowser, see how they can play off of each other and go from there. I think that would have been a lot stronger, especially because, there's a moment where Peach talks about there are various galaxies out there. We don't do anything with this galaxy idea. We don't see Rosalina. We don't get to the Comet Observatory. We don't do anything with the Lumas. This Luma is just here and doesn't add anything to the movie. So again, severe missed opportunity there. That would have been a major change I would have made to the movie. Speaking of things that were unnecessary, for an Illumination film, they were pretty darn good about this, but they still had to put in some licensed music in this movie. And I thought it was completely unnecessary. Now, to be fair, I don't think the songs they chose will age the movie at all. Okay, it wasn't like they put in all the big hits of 2022 or 2021 or whatever this was originally written in there. They picked songs that were from different eras. So, for example, when Peach and Mario and Toad end up driving along this big windy road with this nondescript Kong throughout the Jungle Kingdom, they have Take On Me playing. I don't think that really adds to the scene. I would have rather that they had some kind of medley of different intense Mario Kart music or some Donkey Kong related Mario Kart songs there. I think that would have added to it way more. Having Take On Me there doesn't really add anything. It's great, it's a recognizable song, people know it, but does that really have anything to do with that moment? No, at the end of the day, it doesn't. So I don't understand why that was really needed, or, I can't remember the exact moment it happens in the movie, but they use Hold Out for a Hero, and I don't think that was really necessary. I think that's the name of the song is, but it's something like that. It's a very iconic song. It was in Shrek 2 as well. But it made a lot more sense in that movie because that movie's a lot more they lean on the references in that movie. I don't think that adds anything to the Super Mario Brothers movie. And maybe I'm just curmudgeonly Scrooge about everything, but I don't get it. I don't see the appeal. I'm glad that there's probably some people out there who loved it. I did not. And on the topic of music, though, I think the intermixing of actual Mario music throughout the movie, pretty good. I would say overall very good. The only point I had on it, again in this first impressions, that I would have changed, I think they leaned, and to be fair, this makes sense why they did it, but I still think they leaned a little too much on the original Super Mario Brothers. So, you know, I can think of games that had songs represented. Super Mario Brothers, of course. There's some Super Mario Brothers 3. There's a little bit of Super Mario World, a tiny bit of Super Mario 64, one that came completely out of nowhere, but for when they went onto Rainbow Road, and again, that's not a spoiler, we saw it in the trailer, when they first get onto Rainbow Road, they used Mario Kart Double Dash as Rainbow Road for that. Way unexpected. I guess it kind of makes sense because, you know, the folks who grew up with the GameCube are like now really becoming real adults where they would have the money to want to go see this movie. So I think it's a fine choice. Was not what I expected, but I like that they went for some deep cuts. There's a little bit of Super Mario Galaxy in there. Anything beyond that? Not really. But there were a lot of times where it's like, okay, we're leaning on do 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 do, or just different Super Mario Brothers 1 songs, and that's fine and all. Again, I get why they would go for it, but I would have preferred to have just that little bit more variety. Just toss in, instead of doing Super Mario Brothers 1's Underground, let's just throw in Super Mario Worlds there. Or instead of doing that one, let's toss in Super Mario Brothers 3. Like, I know they're not that different, but they're just different enough to where it's like, okay, I can see that this is this version as opposed to that version. Or, you know, I would have liked a little more variety. If we're going underwater, for example, at some point in the movie, instead of using, you know, do 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 from, you know, that song, the Underwater from Super Mario Brothers, let's toss in Dire Dire Docks. There'll be people who would love having Dire Dire Docks in there as opposed to the Super Mario Brothers 1 Underwater theme. And again, I'm totally coming at this from the perspective of somebody who, of course, loves different Mario games, so bias is totally there. I understand I'm not necessarily in the general audience for this, but I think it would just be nice to get that little extra bit of variety. And when it comes to, this is really my last critique, and it's another sort of script writing critique. I think a lot of my critiques of this movie come to script writing. I think from an animation standpoint is very good, lighting, camera angles. I really didn't have anything to complain about there. It's all just sort of writing stuff, you know, shock and surprise. Writing's not the best part of this movie, right? And I think the ending, and this is the one really truly spoilery thing I have, I think the ending was kind of abrupt, and I'll go into more detail on this, like once the film is out at retail and it's on streaming for more people to be able to see it, but I would have liked to see more of the aftermath of the real climax of the movie. And now then again, like I kept thinking about this on my drive home from this, which is a little longer than I thought it would because I went with some other people to go see this. I didn't just see this in town where I live now. And I realized, you know, I guess this is a critique I can make of a lot of other movies. It seems like it's a common flaw in a lot of movies where the ending just kind of happens and it is what it is. We don't really get much of the resolution, much of the aftermath. So I can't give the Super Mario Brothers movie too hard of a time, I guess, for it, but I would have liked to just see a little more now that the brothers have achieved this goal. Like, why do they decide, like, you know, how do they feel? How do people around them feel? How are things going to change now? And we didn't get any of that. It was just like, okay, well, the movie's over, and that's that. And there was a mid-credit scene and there was a post-credit scene. The mid-credit scene didn't really add much. It was funny. The post-credit scene does try to set something up. They did go in a direction. I don't think I talked about it at all in the last episode with it.
And if you folks want to skip this, if you think this is a spoiler, that's fine. Go ahead. I've pretty much said my thoughts, so feel free if you want to be done here. That's fine. Just make sure, like, comment, send me a voice message, all that fun stuff. I will say it again here at the end. But when it comes to post credits, I talked about, okay, they could go a Bowser Jr. direction, they could go a Wario Waluigi direction. Actually, I don't know if I talked about this, but this is kind of what I was thinking. I would have preferred they went in like a Bowser Jr. direction. Instead, the tease they have is they show a Yoshi egg. And to be fair, I feel like they foreshadowed this a little bit, because there is a moment earlier on where somebody like brings out a Yoshi egg, and it is the green Yoshi egg. It's like you could just describe it as the Yoshi egg. And so we see the egg start to crack, and then we hear Kazumi Totaka. We hear the famous Yoshi clip, the one that's used in all kinds of games. And, that's interesting. I'm not opposed to, if there is a sequel to this movie, having it have some focus on Yoshi, because of course Yoshi's an important character Yoshi didn't get any focus in this movie, and it is what it is. So if that's what they want to do for the next movie, great. If the second Super Mario Brothers movie, or the Super Mario Brothers movie Part 2, or whatever it's called, if it's an adaptation of Super Mario World, and all the background music is Super Mario World, and they're on Dinosaur Land, and the Koopalings are a big focus, and it's pretty much just a huge like love letter to that game, you won't hear me complaining. But if I'm being objective here, I do think there could have been a more interesting direction they went with it, but I'm not complaining. I think that's a perfectly fine way to set up a sequel. So those are my first impressions on the Super Mario Brothers movie. I had a lot of critiques of it, as you could hear here, but like I said, they did not. I don't think Illumination screwed it up. I was very pleased. Not that I think they have the best track record, but I would say this movie, even taking away my bias toward, or like against their movies, I would say, or my bias, of course, toward the Mario series, I would say this is probably their strongest movie of all the ones they've done. It wasn't as generic as other movies that they've done. It had no annoying characters. It didn't like lean too much on any like cliche themes. Of course, like I said, it had them in there. I think the trying to be not a disappointment to your parents is pretty much their one real cliche in this. But if that's all I can point out right now, I think they did a good job. Granted, like I said, this is just first impressions. I could come back to this whenever I get like a Blu-ray copy of this, or a DVD copy of this, whatever I end up getting, and I watch it again, either for the second time if I decide, I really don't want to see it again in the theater, or the third or fourth time or whatever, and I see more of the flaws in it, I could come back further down to earth and be like, no, it was really just an okay movie. But on I do think first impressions actually do mean a lot more than people think. And I should also say, I've been very, very adamant to not listen to any reviews from any people that I really respect on this sort of topic as well. So all of these thoughts, all of this is completely from me, okay? I have no influence on this. No one is influencing my thoughts on this other than myself. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. I am glad that I spent the $10.50 for my ticket to go see it. So I would encourage people, if you haven't gone and seen it, go see it. Movies are only in theaters for so long, and it takes quite a bit for me to want to go to the movies. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And with that, I think that closes out this approximately half an hour Creative Out bonus, not that much shorter, I guess, than a regular episode. But if you want to, folks, make sure you do all those types of engagement things, thumbs up stuff, leave a comment, maybe leave that comment in the form of a, my goodness, why can I not think of the word right now? A voice message. I still want to get that first voice message, oh mine. It would make me very, very, very happy to have one of those. And I'm trying to find the link for it again, because we can't just have nice, easy links anymore. No, they have to be complicated links. Podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show /THECOP, I'm pretty sure. Is that correct? Yes, /THECOP. Podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/THECOP. That's where you can leave me a voicemail. And with that, folks, I will see you later. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.